I have invited Mr. Brennan to come up and give a presentation to the Vero Beach City Council on the latest Florida Power and Light offer. And procedurally, if it's the pleasure of the council, I have a 15-minute statement that I also want to give after the FPL presentation. Of course, we're seeing the FPL presentation in the City Council for the first time, as you are. I think that format would be useful. Then we'll open it to public comment. To anyone that wants to comment, they can comment about what Amy says, and they can comment on what I have to say. I have quite a few things to say. I haven't said much up to now. If that's agreeable, I think that might be useful because you'll have a lot of information, I think. So welcome. It's been a while since I've seen you.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. Well, my last communication with you via my email to City Manager O'Connor on January 27th, I committed to you that I would be back to you to bring you some options for moving forward with the sale of the Vero Beach electric system to Florida Power and Light. I stated in that same email that FMPA's number for assuming its own high-cost power was much higher than we anticipated. We all know now that that number is $52 million. I said then, I told you that we were analyzing options because we are still committed, and it is still our goal, to bring the lowest electric bills in the state to Vero Beach. And we're here this morning to present to you what we believe is the best option for completing this long-awaited sale. However, I really want to emphasize to all of you that whatever option we ultimately pursue as partners with you is your decision, and yours alone. There is a contract in place. It was approved by the City Council last February and overwhelmingly approved by the voters last March. So staying the course is also an option. The decision is yours. But I need to also let you know that we are not confident of closing the sale under the existing contract because of the FMPA's insistence on an opinion from the IRS in regard to the 3-year power purchase agreement currently in place between FPL and OUC. That does not mean we agree with FMPA that the power purchase agreement puts those bonds in jeopardy. Quite the contrary. It means that FPL is not confident that a request for an IRS opinion authored by the FMPA will result in an IRS opinion that is satisfactory to the FMPA at its sole discretion. Based on opinions from our tax council, your tax council, and others, we are confident, we at FPL are confident that the power purchase agreement will not put those bonds in jeopardy. But as we all know, FMPA controls that message. So this is why we have worked long and hard over the last few months to study and to analyze if there is another path forward and to reaffirm our commitment to working with the City of Vero Beach to bring lower electric bills to all of the city's electric customers. We have another path forward, a path we believe can close this sale by January 1st of 2015. While we know that is ambitious, it is a goal we believe can be accomplished if all parties are committed to that outcome. FPL, all 5 of you sitting up there, and FMPA. And we can and will show you a timeline on the needed steps to reach this goal. But again, I need to emphasize that timeline is conditioned upon all parties working towards a goal of January 1st, 2015 closing, not obstructing it. I want to tell you today that FPL is 100% committed. We are here today to ask you today, as your partner, if you would like us to pursue this option with the FMPA. That is what we are asking you. We have said from our very first meeting with the City of Vero Beach that our existing 4.6 million customers cannot be negatively impacted by this transaction. And in our many internal discussions, we agreed as a team, starting with our most senior management, that we want to remain partners with the City of Vero Beach. As a result, we have made the decision to share the burden of the $52 million FMPA payment with Vero Beach to extricate Vero Beach from its own contracts with the FMPA. We are offering to split the cost with the city to pay FMPA what it has asked for and to once and for all move forward. Our President, Eric Szilagyi, told FMPA this on February 19th. Since then, FMPA has responded with a letter that again lists the outstanding issues, none of which are new, and many of which have been addressed already by your transactional attorneys. Pat Bryan and John Igo are here today, and they're going to speak to that some more shortly. FPL has since responded again that this transaction can indeed close based on the solutions provided by your attorneys, so long as the FMPA is willing and so long as you are willing. You have heard me say this before. This is not a hostile takeover, although some in this community might have you think as much. It is a response to an invitation from this city's elected leaders representing the desires of this community to bring relief from high electric bills. It must remain as such for us to successfully move forward. Our proposal to you includes Vero Beach paying $26 million, one half of the FMPA's $52 million payment, and FPL will pay the other half. Vero Beach's share of the FMPA payment would be realized by an immediate reduction in customer bills for either a 3 or a 4-year period, at the end of which Vero Beach electric customers would enjoy FPL rates immediately and permanently. At closing, under this plan, City of Vero Beach customers would receive an immediate discount on their electric bills of anywhere from 8 to 16%. My colleague Jennifer Cooper will review the actual scenarios with you momentarily, but I need to be perfectly clear. This is not about additional charges or a surcharge, but rather this is about a decision on how much of a reduction in rates Vero Beach customers will receive on day one and a guarantee of FPL's lower rates after 3 to 4 years. This is about the cost that FMPA is requiring to be paid to take back its high-cost power. We have not seen FMPA's financial analysis, but what the price tells us is that the cost of FMPA's power is even higher than we anticipated over the current market value. So while we don't know how FMPA arrived at the $52 million figure, we do know that paying it is the best way, and perhaps the only way, to bring FPL rates to Vero Beach, Indian River Shores, and all of Indian River County. So to recap, what this means for Vero Beach customers is an immediate discount on their electric bills at the sales closing, meaning customers will see lower bills than they are currently paying today. Bills will go down even more after the city's portion of the FMPA payment, $26 million, is collected. Then Vero Beach customers will enjoy the same low rates as all FPL customers. Jennifer's going to provide more detail, but at a high level, under a 3-year option, the immediate discount means customers will receive more than 50% of the savings they would have expected if they received FPL rates on day one. Under the 4-year option, customers will receive almost 65% of the savings they would have expected if they received FPL rates on day one. It is up to you, the City Council, however, to decide the length of time customers would pay back the FMPA payment. And while we know this option is not what we had all hoped for from the beginning, it is so much better than what you have right now. It brings you halfway, at least halfway, if not more, to FPL rates immediately, and it guarantees you FPL rates going forward. Without this option, if we stick with the original transaction, which is also your decision, customers will continue to pay $138 a month for 1,000 kilowatt hours with no guarantee of getting FPL rates under the existing contract. I'm sure you're going to have many questions, and I would just appreciate that if you would hold them all to the end of our formal presentation, and we will stay here till every question is answered. Thank you for your attention to my remarks, and I'm going to bring up Jennifer to review the savings numbers with you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, council members. The 26 million share represents the city's portion of the 52 million that FMPA is charging for the out-of-market power for the Stanton entitlements for the 3-year time period. The FMPA payment of $26 million can be spread over a 3 or 4-year time period, depending on what works for the city. The FMPA is currently targeted for a 3 to 4 year period, but it will last until the full $26 million is collected. And at that point in time, the customers will receive FPL's base rates. Therefore, if the FMPA payment is collected earlier, then customers will receive FPL base rates sooner. However, if for some reason it is delayed, then the time period will be extended. The FMPA payment will be allocated and distributed across all customers' classes. That includes commercial, industrial, and residential. For each class, that payment will be applied to their base rates. You will not see a separate line item charge on your customer bill. It will be applied to the base rate on the bill. For all other items and clauses on the bill, customers will receive FPL's rates and charges. Today, we plan to show you the proposed estimated bills for the Vero Beach customers for the 3-year and 4-year option. This first slide represents the 3-year option. It is a typical residential bill for a 1,000 kilowatt hour residential customer. You will see on the left-hand side the typical charges that you will see on a normal bill. It compares the current Vero rates to FPL's bill day one for the customers. Day one, Vero customers will receive an immediate reduction to their bill that will get the customers over halfway to FPL savings through the 3-year option. Across the jurisdictions, which include the inside city limits, the outside city, Indian River County, and the Indian River shores, customers will be charged the same FMPA payment based on their usage rates. As you can see on the line item represented by electric charges, every customer underneath the 3 jurisdictions receive $108.79. This reduction for customers under the 3-year option ranges from 8% to 16%, depending on where they live. The difference between those reductions is based on the utility tax and the franchise fees that are imposed by the city or the county in which they live in. The next slide shows the 4-year option. Underneath the 4-year option, the FMPA payment is extended over another year, which allows every customer to have more savings with the day one savings on the first year. That represents from a 10% to an 18% discount, depending on what jurisdiction they live in. As I stated before, the difference between the 10% and the 18% depends on the utility taxes and the franchise fees imposed by the city or county that they live in. This option provides customers approximately 65% of FPL savings day one. To reiterate Amy's comments earlier, this is not a surcharge. This is an FMPA payment charged by FMPA to take their own power for the first 3 years. With the 3-year and 4-year option that we are proposing today, it will provide Vero Beach customers immediate savings to their bills and will allow Vero customers to capture up to 50 to 65% of FPL savings day one, with a targeted date to receive the full FPL savings. Thank you for their time, and now I will introduce Pat Bryan, who will discuss the key terms of this new proposed transaction.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and council members. For the record, my name is Patrick Bryan, attorney for Florida Power and Light Company. As Amy and Jennifer mentioned, I will now discuss the conditions that would be applicable to the $52 million payment to FMPA, and what the immediate next steps would need to be. With respect to the conditions, first, we would need FMPA's commitment to publicly support this transaction. If FMPA will insist that unanimous consent and approval of all of its project members is required, then FMPA's support for the transaction must be clear and unequivocal. The same is true with respect to the bond-related consents that would be required of the bond trustees, bond insurers, and others. FMPA must publicly support the transaction in its statements to the outside world and in its discussions with its project members and all others involved. We would expect FMPA's commitment to diligently and in good faith pursue the consents that are required. We would ask FMPA to provide a draft resolution in form and content acceptable to FMPA, to its project members, to facilitate the timely procurement of the required consents. Second condition, FMPA must agree to honor the city's request for early withdrawal from the All Requirements project. As you all know, the city has not taken power under this project for many years. FMPA contends that the city may have liability for certain stranded costs or other withdrawal costs at the actual, that might be in effect on the actual termination date of the project for Vero, which FMPA calculates as October of 2016. The city, through its council, has offered a proposal to keep FMPA whole against any valid claims for stranded or other withdrawal costs that might be in effect as of that actual later date. We believe this proposal should be accepted by FMPA. In our view, it effectively addresses and resolves each of FMPA's concerns on this issue. A third condition, FMPA and the city must resolve all issues related to City of Vero Beach's contingent liabilities under the entitlement contracts after the close of the transaction. FMPA interprets its contract as requiring the city to be secondarily liable after the transfer of the entitlements to OUC in the highly unlikely circumstance that OUC defaults on its payment obligations or other obligations under the entitlement contracts it would have assumed. 2 points on this issue. First, FMPA does not currently enjoy this secondary protection in the event of a Vero Beach default today. So this protection would be an added layer of protection after the close of the transaction. Point number 2, OUC is a better credit risk than the City of Vero Beach. It has a better credit rating. So just by virtue of OUC stepping into the shoes of Vero Beach under these entitlement contracts places FMPA in a better position from a risk perspective than it is in today. Notwithstanding that, the city has offered a comprehensive proposal to FMPA to provide credit enhancements to provide for this secondary protection. Mr. Igo previously has addressed the council on this proposal. It would involve several layers of protection, one being contract or bond insurance, and then the pledge of the city's franchise revenues and municipal tax revenues. We need this issue to be resolved, and we believe the city's proposal, under the circumstances, is extremely fair and reasonable. So those are the conditions. As far as the next steps, the first order of business would be a meeting with the FMPA to discuss all of these issues. That's absolutely necessary. We would like it to happen soon. We believe the city should be represented at that meeting. We have placed several calls to FMPA to attempt to obtain dates on which their staff is available for such a meeting. To date, we have not been successful in obtaining those dates. We will continue to keep trying. After that meeting or meetings, as might be required, amendments to existing documents would be made. New documents would be created, drafted as necessary to implement this proposal. When that process is completed, a revised purchase and sale agreement, along with other documents that are necessary to implement this proposal, would be brought before you, the City Council, for your formal approval. As we have said, we believe this is the best path forward. We are convinced that this can happen if all of the parties join together in a commitment to make it happen. Thank you. We're happy to answer any questions.
Before you do questions, Amy, do you have further comment or not? I have comment.
Just as Pat was saying, so what we need, the first step is your commitment or your direction to us to pursue this path, and we are asking for that formally and publicly, for a commitment from the City Council to us to say, yes, please pursue those meetings and please pursue this option. We are asking for that today. So when we're done with the comments, maybe we can get to that.
Yes, I'm going to give you my comments, and it will answer your question, what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. I have not done that publicly any place. This will take a few minutes. It involves a great deal of thought and input from the community. I will make these remarks available electronically and in hard copy. But first I have to say it is disappointing that the city will be left with just $3 million from the sale of an ongoing electric business and its capital assets valued at $190 million. While ratepayers will have to be burdened with significantly above market prices for electricity, and they're being asked to pay a $26 million surcharge, is disappointing. The ultimate goal has always been to get Vero Beach's power rates down, and the strategy to accomplish this objective has been to sell to Florida Power and Light. Until recently, it was widely believed the sale could not be concluded until December of 2016 or December of 2017. Now we are told by FPL, as you just heard, that if ratepayers are assessed a $26 million surcharge, the sale could occur this December or by January 1st of 2015, same thing. In light of the significant rate differential between Vero Electric and FPL, we should carefully consider this option. Our next step should be to request the Finance and the Utilities Commission thoroughly vet the FPL proposed surcharge. I'm not willing to vary from having them look at it. At the same time, these two commissions should identify and help us clearly understand what are other significant costs and resulting sacrifices there will be. While I hate to say it, the fact is the $26 million surcharge will not be the only additional cost the ratepayers will have to bear. There will be, for example, contingent liabilities to be covered. These contingent liabilities include the potential of any ground contamination under the plant, among others, which will have to be remedied, and likely at a significant cost. Where will the money come from? The only options are to assess a tax increase on city residents to pay for that, or to pay for those cleanup costs and other contingent liabilities, of which there are several, or to increase the $26 million surcharge on the advice of the commissions to cover the entire cost of the city. Fairness remains a priority, and the only fair solution would be the assessment of additional surcharge to cover these contingencies, because these obligations were incurred on behalf of all the customers of Vero Electric, whether in the city, in the town of Indian River Shores, or in the unincorporated areas. We must remember the city expanded its electric utility beyond its borders, not because it wanted to, not because it wanted to, because the city was the only power provider at the time in a position to serve the developing areas south, north, and west of the city limits. In fairness to the taxpayers of Vero Beach, the Finance and Utilities Commission should assess the contingent liability expense and other significant post-sale costs, because this issue is critically important to the taxpayers in a city with ad valorem taxes of just $4 million a year. It's time to be frank and confront reality. The current FPL contract has the city and its electrical customers in limbo. Major issues of how to resolve the FMPA and OUC binding contracts remain unresolved after nearly 3 years of trying. During this time, City Council has not acted to get rates down. We must work to conclude the sale this year, but we must at the same time, pursue all available options for lowering rates. Remember, that's our goal. FPL's latest proposal is a positive development, but only if the sale can be completed this year. Fortunately, FPL, for its part, has clearly indicated a commitment to closing this year. It is promising that FPL may have a solution to the remaining issues to be worked through with FMPA. But the Council must act now to lower rates while these negotiations continue. However, what we cannot do is get into more open-end agreements. Even with a $26 million surcharge, a sale to FPL is a good long-term option if in fact it can be achieved. It is costly, but it is the offer they have put on the table. Further, the freeing up of the city's working capital is our only immediate means of paying off our unfunded pension liability. We must preserve this capital. Let's be clear. If we agree to spend any of the electric reserve, we would be in the position of a homeowner who, after selling his house for nothing or a loss, is forced to leave behind the furniture. Can't do that. Using electric reserve money to shore up the city's pension fund will save $3.7 million a year. If we do not bring the pension funds current, and if we also lose the 6% return on the utility investments, also known as the utility transfer, but it's an investment, then city property taxes currently at $4 million will have to approximately double. So yes, the FPL surcharge proposal is costly, but it is the only FPL proposal on the table. I guess they could go back to the old one. I think we should encourage FPL to work out the remaining issues with the FMPA as quickly as possible and in direct meetings between the two parties. And yes, I think we should seriously consider the ratepayers surcharge by referring FPL's proposal to the Finance and Utilities Commission for prompt yet thorough vetting. Another point for the Finance and Utility Commissions to consider is the fact that in the year since the FPL contract was signed, for the FMPA, OUC, and FPL, the deal gets better and better with each passing day. But the ratepayers situation is not improving, nor is the deal improving for the city and its taxpayers. If these protracted negotiations were allowed to drag on beyond January 1st, 2015, the city and its ratepayers would get even a progressively worse deal, while the big players would benefit from a progressively better deal. That is one reason why FPL's president, Mr. Eric Slage's January 1st, 2015 date is critical. A referendum should only be held if that date is clearly achievable. I'm extremely disappointed with the prospect of a $26 million ratepayer surcharge, largely because it means that for several years or more following the sale, the customers of Vero Beach will not enjoy FPL rates, which has been our promise, and it has been our promise. Yet, I believe we have to encourage FPL and the transactional lawyers to finish this transaction by speedily reaching an agreement with FMPA. Once agreements are achieved, all necessary changes to the contract must be completed. Realistically, this must occur within the next 60 days if there is to be a chance of concluding the FPL transaction this year. In past referendums, voters were asked to approve illusory concepts rather than fully negotiated contract. Given where we stand today, that approach was clearly ill-advised and must not be repeated. Again, the next step is for FPL as the buyer to sit down immediately with the FMPA and work out the remaining issues. In the end, voters will need to make the final decision on whether the surcharges and any other substantial changes to the sales contract between the city and FPL are reasonable. Before this question can be placed before voters, though, we need a new signed contract, and before that, before you can have a contract, the FPL and FMPA issues must be resolved. They must be resolved. Let me reiterate here that the goal here is and always has been to get rates down, which is why we must act on our own to reduce rates now, even while FPL works to conclude its negotiations with FMPA. Reading the letters exchanged last week between FMPA's General Manager, Nicholas, and FPL's President, Eric Slaggy, it would seem as if the key players in this deal are like two speeding trains traveling in opposite directions. Read the letters for yourself. Realistically, one has to wonder if these two large organizations will ever resolve their differences. For 3 long years, the good people of Vero Beach have been waiting patiently at the train station in the hopes that the rate reduction relief train would stop in our fine city. Unfortunately, it seems increasingly clear that FPL and FMPA locomotives are heading away from us and in opposite directions, one from another. Rather than to remain stranded at the station, we need to be prepared to look out for ourselves, even if that means taking a bus, so to speak, in the form of securing rate reductions we know we can achieve on our own. Ultimately, if we have to leave the station in a bus, the journey to significant rate reductions will take longer. But we can and must prepare ourselves to take care of ourselves. Earlier, I spoke of simultaneously moving forward on 2 parallel paths, both of which support the potential sale by improving the terms of the deal for all parties, including FPL, which at the same time bring more immediate rate relief. Everyone should be aware that we can take a number of steps to lower rates. First, through the rate reduction, although the rate reduction was slight, rates were cut 1.2% as of January 21st this year. This is the first rate decrease in a number of years. While not yet approved, Vice Mayor Kramer's proposal to return to the common practice of financing capital improvements through debt rather than paying for them out of cash flow is a starting point and will reduce rates. There are ongoing efforts to reduce the clerical costs of billing and collection that has been undertaken by city staff. Again, though this is a small step, every opportunity to achieve savings should be pursued, and that will result in a further saving. There is a renewed emphasis on staffing the Finance and Utilities Commission to equip them to vet these matters. More importantly, going forward, these two commissions should initiate suggestions to reduce rates. Even if that means forging new paths, much as the Finance Commission did a year ago in bringing forward the Gory plan to fund the pensions. I have faith both of these commissions will be proactive and critical to the rate reduction process. With that said, there are a number of actions that could reduce rates significantly. Dealing with the annual $4.3 million cost of maintaining and fully staffing a power plant that sits idle more than 90% of the time. That alone could reduce rates by 5%. To allow for decommissioning of the power plant, we need to acquire more transmission capacity in the city. I know the city manager has been looking into that. The 20-year OUC contract, and an unfortunate one, must be reevaluated, especially in light of the deal that OUC recently made the city of Lake Worth. We are currently paying the OUC well above market price for their portion of the power. This is not fair to our customers and in the long run will not be beneficial to OUC. For several years now, our $100 million utility business has been without top professional management dedicated to the task of optimizing the operation of the system. As we did successfully with water and sewer, we should turn to experts to find inventive ways to cut costs and manage the system more efficiently. There has to be many. There were many in the water. Yes, I think we can you can on our own take steps to reduce rates while the FPL negotiations continue. I do believe that we must fend for ourselves when in a few years we can get substantially very close to the Florida Power and Light rates. If the worst happens and the FPL deal cannot be closed in the time period FPL's Mr. Slaggy has laid out, then in my opinion we need to take another penultimate step by providing fair representation of all the ratepayers in any rate decision. Fair representation can be accomplished by establishing a utility authority with a board selected not by the city voters or by city council, but by all ratepayers, including those in Indian River shores and the unincorporated areas we serve. A utility authority should consider bringing in a professional management company to run the utility. If and when it becomes feasible to do so, this authority would certainly be able to sell all or a part of the system to FPL or any other buyer. Remember, our disadvantageous contracts with the FMPA and OUC do actually come to an end someday. Under this approach, that is, the authority, the city would turn over its assets to a utility authority, and the city would be paid a fair return on the city's investment. Essentially, the city's revenue would remain the same as now, therefore the taxes would remain the same as now. Of course, there are potential disadvantages of a utility authority. Without a sale to FPL, we cannot pay off the unfunded pension liability that was pointed out in the Gorey plan, and we must rely on the 6% return on investment. We call it a utility transfer, but it's really a return on investment to help fund basic services. But we would do that because we would be contributing the assets. The authority, even with professional management, does not assure we can get rates as low as Florida Power and Light. Let me be clear about that. But the resulting low rates a utility authority could achieve would be attractive, and all the people would be represented. Further, if a utility authority should at some point decide it is the best interest of ratepayers to look for another buyer or to sell to Florida Power and Light, they could certainly do so. In summary, I think we should pursue the sale to Florida Power and Light with a firm closing date of no later than January 1st, 2015. But if the FMPA and FPL trains do not come together, we'll have our bus at the station and we'll solve our rate problems on our own. We must remember that low rates are the goal. The goal is not any particular solution, whether selling to Florida Power and Light or establishing authority. The goal everyone believes in and wants to see achieved is lower electrical costs. A system-wide authority gives all ratepayers a vote, and is an alternative path we must simultaneously pursue. We are not trapped if we will rely on ourselves, which after all is the American way. So let's pursue these simultaneous roads to success, for in that way we will be filling our responsibilities to our ratepayers and one another. I will make this available electronically and in hard copy, but I have said that as far as I'm concerned today, the next step is pass this to the commissions.
Mr. if I may?
Mrs. Turner?
Thank you.
We're not going to have public comment.
Yeah, we will certainly get public comment as well. Now I would just say that we really need to look at where we are, how we got where we are. Right now, 60% of our cost of your electric bill come from the power. These are directly from Florida Municipal Power Association bills and our OUC contracts. For over 30 years, we've been a part of Florida Municipal Power Association. We do not have any equity at all after making those payments for 30 years. In fact, one of our projects, we even owe more on it than we started with, St. Lucie. Those projects were evaluated by a consultant. The market value for our FMPA contracts, the low value is a negative $30 million, and the high value is a negative $18 million. So that's our asset, our power asset. The OUC contract that we're in, it was valued at a negative $53 million, to between a negative 32 million. Total, you're looking at 82 to 51 million negative. This is what the city's committed to right now. Our FMPA commitment, time-wise, we are tied until 2066. And that can be extended. These are contracts, that were meant to never, ever get out of, ever escape. This is our opportunity to get lower rates. We can only control 40% of our costs. So even if you're going to refinance, you get a 1% or a 2%. We will never, with that 60% high power cost, get to FPL rates. It's just mathematically not possible. I know this is a long haul, but this is our chance to get lower electric rates, to break free from FMPA and these OUC, from these bad contracts that we got into, and to move forward.
With that, I think we should open it to public comment. We've asked you to sit there now for, 45 minutes. So who would like to come forward? And we'll run to 12:30. At that point, I doubt we'll be through with comments or be to any action. We will take a break for lunch. Go forward, sir.
Somebody left this thing up.
That's just, it's for the
I
overhead.
didn't know, that's for that. Okay, I didn't know that. I'm still the same person I was half an hour ago, and I still live at the same place, hopefully. Haven't been kicked out. I just want to ask let me preface my comments with this. I've been here for 37 years in Vero Beach, and I've never seen anything extraordinary happen. People live and die, and life goes on. This is akin to Thornton Wilder's Our Town, as far as I'm concerned. I have no idea why somebody would come up with the notion that anybody here in Indian River County is ever pressed for time. Having said that, I'd like to ask the one person who talked about this $26 million has to be paid off based on usage rate, or is it based on the usage? And there's a difference, and I'd like to get an answer for that question.
FPL, would you like to answer the question?
Just a clarification, are we going to be answering questions from the public or just from the council?
I think we should answer the public's questions.
Through the council, though.
So through the council, so she says.
All right, would you answer the gentleman's questions?
Yeah, let's hear the question again.
Do you mind repeating the question?
No, I don't mind repeating the question. Is the repayment of this $26 million loan going to be based on usage rate or based on usage? And there is a difference.
I'm not sure we understand the question.
I'm not surprised.
Sure
A rate, I know that too. Though I have to explain my question, and you're asking me to explain my question. The usage rate is the rate that, where am I supposed to be here? Right here?
Yeah.
The usage rate is what we pay based on the amount of power we use. The usage is, let me put it this way: if you don't use any power, but you still have a rate, is the guy across the street from me who uses 1,000 kilowatts and I use 10, are we going to pay the same amount of money for this $20 million? Or am I going to pay a lot less?
Got it.
That's easy.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So So your payment will actually, the amount that you will pay from the FMPA payment will be based on your actual usage. So if you had, let's say, a 1,200 kilowatt hour bill, you would pay more of the FMPA payment than if you had an 800 kilowatt hour bill. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That answers the question, and I think that's a fair way of paying back the money. Okay, I'm going to have to read my notes here. I don't think we're looking for any ephemeral ease here. So this business about lowering our rates now or next week or next year is meaningless. You have to look at the a long-term goal. That's what you have to do. We're not interested in ephemeral ease, at least I'm not. Now, maybe some people are pressed for coins these days, and it would help if their power bill were lower, but I think that the council, representing the bulk of the city, the bulk of the citizens, the ratepayers, the customers, et cetera, you have to look to 20 years, 50 years down the line. Mm-hmm. Not that we should be strapped for that amount, but you have to do something now that will get us off the hook. Not tomorrow or by January the year 15. Okay, excuse me, I have to do this because I had a lot of notes here. The bond rating, well, that's really interesting that our bond rating is lower than OUC. And, you know, this whole thing is because the public never paid attention, or very few people in the public paid attention to what you and your predecessors have done, and that includes the staff, the city managers now and in the past. That's why we're in the fix we're in. That's why we're in the fix we're in. Because the people, you know, I don't know who has the talent here. I most certainly don't, to orchestrate this thing to a final good. But I don't think any of you, individually or collectively, either. And the notion to hire somebody to do it, you tried that. You got a transactional attorney who's been screwing around for 3 years, and we're nowhere. He's got nothing. The transactional attorney, he's got us nothing. There was no deal that I can see. We're paying $52 million, and I don't know what to FMPA. We're paying that, the whole thing. Florida Power and Light, it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, that they're going to loan us money, and that's what the surcharge is going to be about. Isn't that correct? So we're paying the whole $52 million. They're not paying, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct or not? No, it's not right. So they're paying the $26 million. $26 million that they could have given us if we didn't have we didn't have to pay them. You had an out. A couple years ago, or a year ago, whenever prior council, I can't remember her name, but you voted to cause an investigation. And you came back the next meeting, most of you were there except for this lady here, and most of you, all 3 or 4 of you were here, and you all of a sudden had a change in venue. You say, no, we can't have an investigation. That was your out. Don't believe that you didn't have an out. You had an out. And I guarantee you, I can't guarantee you, but I would bet my bottom dollar and everyone on top of it that those people, the OUC people and the FMPA will have disappeared, as I said before, like a snowflake in Hades. They would have disappeared because they don't want to be deposed. They don't want to be investigated. And anybody that thinks that the Colton's, the state attorney's investigation had any weight at all is surely beyond therapy. I'm trying to be a little entertaining at times. This is, and if you remember, well, you know, I know you want to get on. These people, this FMPA people, they're not our friends. They're not saying, hey, guys, Vero Beach, we'll let it slide, you know, we'll forget about it. Now they're not that, and the idea that you have to negotiate with these people as if they're our buddies is pure lunacy. I could go on, but are you going to get to the? Excuse me. Are you going to get to the 4B sometime today?
Yes, sir. It'll be this afternoon, I'm sure. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, have fun.
Next public comment, Bill Fish in the first row. Identify yourself, Mr. Fish.
Bill Fish, 2236 Buena Vista Boulevard in the city of Vero Beach. I was part of the council when we negotiated with OUC. We had FMEA, FMPA giving us all this wonderful advice. And in this time period, right now, we were shown graphs where we will beat FP&L. We're not. And something that I heard the mayor say, and I firmly agree, I don't think we were really running the show then. And so when I hear you say we need to be in charge here, we meaning you people and the commissions need to really be running the show here, because at that point we saw these graphs, we said, wow, isn't that just wonderful? We will enjoy great rates, and we listened to those people. And here we are today behind the 8 ball. So I appreciate your comments greatly that, yeah, we need to be in charge here. Thank you.
This comment, Mr. Fish, and I think some of you know I've been in the commodity business for a long time, approaching 50 years. Electrons are a commodity. Anyone who thinks he knows where any commodity market's going to be a year or 2 or 3 years from now is surely wrong. And what we did over the past with FMPA, OUC, and now Florida Power and Light with the contract that has almost 4 years to run is we signed long-term contracts. And what happens is that's why I think we need professional management. You never beat the market. All of those things I'm sure looked wonderful when they were done, but they have turned out less than wonderful. Be that as it may. Next comment, Mr. Hill.
Good morning. My name's James Patrick Hill, otherwise known as Toby. I live at 685 Lake Drive. I've been a resident in Vero Beach for 34 years. I live in the city. I own and operate a number of companies that are not in the city. However, they are on city power. And I would estimate that the current rates, and when you take my house and all my businesses, probably cost me in the range of somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 per month, just the excess, and have for an extended period of time. So I'm a very direct and forthright individual, and so I obviously have a very strong interest in getting to FPL rates. I make no bones about it, and I think that's really where everybody would like to be. Is it appropriate for me to ask the council people questions, Mayor Winger?
What's the sense of the concept?
I'd say I could bring up a general issue and then have it open to all council members to respond.
Yeah, you may bring up
Mr. Mayor.
a general issue, not ask any one of us a question, but you may ask a question that one of us may choose to answer.
Okay.
If that's appropriate, is that appropriate?
Yeah, Mayor, your rules provide that questions can be asked through the mayor.
Okay.
Through the presiding officer.
All right.
Okay.
That's even on the agenda, too, by the way.
All right. Well, I wanted to clarify for my own knowledge. I am also, just as a point, I am chairman of the Indian River Tea Party, and most of you know and have attended, every one of you, city council candidate forums. And so I just wanted to check my memory. To the best of my knowledge, every one of you at one of our forums when you ran did indicate you were for the sale of the power plant to FPL. Is that correct?
Well, speaking for myself, and the others can answer, that is correct. And a minute ago I said it's the best solution if we can pull it off. So I haven't really changed my opinion.
I'm just trying to check my
The others
memory.
can answer or not
that's-
answer as they see fit. It's up to them.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. I've supported the sale.
I stated to your forum that I was supportive of a sale that had substantial similar. We would have to talk, of course. No, this is no longer just between the city of Vero Beach and FP&L. We've now asked our ratepayers, and they need to have a say-so too. I can't speak for people that need to place a vote and say yes or no. I represent the city of Vero Beach. If this is what voters want, then that's what we're going to do. But this is good. This is changing. The game has changed.
Hi, Toby. I was in favor and still am strongly in favor. The end goal is to get rid of that dinosaur of a power plant and to sell to Florida Power and Light.
When I first ran, I was greatly in favor of it. And in fact, I did sign the letter of intent and got the negotiations moving. Since that was 3 years ago, we're still nowhere to be found right now. No, I'm not in favor of it.
And Mr. Mayor, you indicated some contingent liabilities, as in potentially unknown contamination below soil. Do those contingent liabilities exist today? They are not going to all of a sudden exist because of the sale. I mean,
Yes,
they
they will.
currently exist. All the contingent liabilities you referenced currently exist for the city, correct, sir?
The contingent liabilities, some are, they will all result as a condition of the sale, not for any other reason. And I talked about them, and I'll give you some more examples. If we continue to have the power plant there, we would never have a slab, therefore we'd never dig underneath it, therefore we'd never know what is under the plant. We don't know what's under the plant to the best of our ability. It could be $1 million, it could be any other number, who knows. But I've been involved in tearing lots of tanks and plants down in my life, so I would tell you there's probably something underneath it. The contingent liabilities also deal up until 2015 with the so-called Taylor swaps. If we didn't resolve it before the end of 2015, there might not be a contingent liability. Those liabilities will self-defease themselves over time, and particularly if interest rates go up. Additionally, we have obligations to FMPA under the FMPA contracts, and we can make those available if you'd like to see them, for other liabilities having to do with the plant and the system. And lastly, most importantly, there are, in roundest terms, well, I don't have a current number, but a year ago it was $240 million worth of bonds that are backing the FMPA. And those $240 million, that's our share of the bonds. In other words, they could be traceable back to us. And that's not a good number, so don't take it now. I haven't worked on it in a long time. But what happens is, the way the FMPA contracts are written, there's a liability. And the point that Pat made is certainly, or one of the FPL people made, is certainly good, in that with OUC taking over the responsibility after 3 years, what happened, and what we're dealing with, the $26 million or the $52 million we're dealing with for the 3 years commencing next January 1st, 2015 and ending at the end of those 3 years. But after those 3 years, what happens is there's bonds, and while we have transferred the purchase of that power under Stanton 2, and St. Lucie to OUC, under the contracts that now exist between Vero Beach and OUC, we did not, and I objected to it, and was one of the reasons that I was not party to sign. Another one was where we are today, why I was one of the ones that didn't agree to the contract, because I thought it had a number of flaws. But essentially, we did not transfer the contingent liability for those bonds. Now, it is correct that OUC has 2 credit ratings, at least 6 months ago, better than we do. It's highly unlikely OUC would default. And the city manager has talked repeatedly about we would pledge the 6% that we would have against those bonds. But the problem is that sufficient of itself? And we've thought about and talked about buying instruments at Lloyd's of London, for instance, to back and so on. And those could have significant costs. the contingent liability that the public could be facing could be a low of a couple $1 million and a high possibly, and I'm only speculating, of $10 million. So in addition, and those things only occur with the sale. After all, if the utility were to go onward, we wouldn't, I still would want to dismantle the plant, and I've said that in my comments. But the Taylor swaps will defease themselves over time under the contract that was made by FMPA. I don't like the contract, but it is what it is, and we are obligated. The other liabilities, of which there are 2 or 3 under the FMPA contract, if we didn't sell the utility, and we wouldn't have those obligations, and we wouldn't have the bond obligations because, what FPL has set up to now is that all of the contingent liabilities have to be back. That's what their most recent letter of the 26th said. So the answer to your question is it's real money. I'm sorry, but it is.
Well, I asked you, did they not already exist, is what my point was.
No,
I didn't say it wasn't real money. I didn't imply that, Mr. Mayor. It appears to me that those liabilities already exist. We're already on the hook for those bonds. We're already signatory to those bonds. And I sat on the Utility Council and have read and have been counseled and have had meetings with Mr. O'Connor, and I have educated myself, sir. I have a difference of opinion. I think that we could be investigated at the site. I think state or federal environmental protection agencies could change our life. And I do believe we already incur those contingent liabilities. I don't think that we have to tear down the plant. That liability already exists. It's either there or it's not. So my point is it already exists. That's all. I appreciate it. And listen, I am very appreciative of the time that you personally put into it, Dick. You have obviously read a lot and educated yourself. You and I just have a different opinion on that. I truly believe you're trying to protect the city. Don't get me wrong. I don't think otherwise. My point, where I stand on this, having been involved, is stepping back from it, okay? Look who sits on the city council. Look who has sat on the city council. We are normal citizens. The utility business is not our business. We are not experts in it, but yet we got ourselves into it many years ago. Well, it might have been an excellent idea back then. The game has gotten so much more complicated, and the pros in it, FPL, have proven they are much better at it than city councils are. Because there's how many members of the FMPA? 18, 19? How many cities are members? 20. Okay. And they're all in this, and they've all been brought into this. This was the brainchild of one individual. We all know it. And this is all good for that group, which is not good for any of the individual members. The contract we got into is not good for the city. None of this has worked to our advantage. The only reason we aren't out of this contract or moving forward in a meaningful way is because FMPA doesn't want us, and we all know there's one individual in FMPA that is preventing it. Okay? And so nobody likes what they've come up with. But finally, Florida Power and Light called their hand, and they've put a number on the table. And nobody wants to see us pay that. Okay? But at the end of the day, when we're done, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and we can get rid of that plant. We can turn this over to the pros who have proven they're far better at estimating where the commodity market will be on all these different fuel sources, and they're better at their fuel mix than FMPA has proven to be. So why do we want to continue to have a relationship with FMPA? They've not treated us fairly. They don't care that the citizens of Vero Beach have voted twice in 2 referendums to extract themselves, to vote to go to FPL. They don't care. It's obviously the will of the people that they want us to move in that direction. Now, the way I see it, you said will move us in that direction. I'm not in favor of it, but it looks like the only way to call FMPA's hands. This is not FPL's doings, and for the record, I don't have any stock in FPL to my knowledge, okay? I do have some mutual funds, and I guess I better go read to see if there's any FPL stock in that. But there's nothing for me to be gained personally. I apologize that I have to make such a statement, but there are people in this room that write interesting stories. Okay? So, from my point of view, if you don't show a galvanized effort, a singularly focused effort, and FMPA doesn't understand that you're going to stay on this and get this done, they're going to wait you out. The time frame that you want to put on this thing, to me, is sure death, because they will wait you out. Fred Bryant has all the time in the world. He will, and you will ensure that this will fail.
Mr. Hill, the timeline was set by Mr. Slaggy of Florida Power and Light. I'm only accepting it. I'm sorry for that. And the other thing, as far as the contingent liabilities, let me finish. They have to be considered to protect the taxpayers. No matter where they came from, they're still there. Yeah. So the date's not mine. I'm just accepting his date.
Well, what I took, maybe I misinterpreted, I took it that you wanted to make it a time certain. That is a goal, to my understanding, for what FPL wants to work to. But doesn't it seem obvious that when you have to deal with a political body, the city council, and all the other city councils that are members, can anybody really predict when all that will come together, when it's so political in nature?
You need to ask the Florida Power and Light people. The date's theirs, not mine. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, from my point of view, it has been stated by all of you that you will move in that direction. I, for one, would greatly appreciate it if you would stay on track and get this done. Thank you for my time.
Thank you very much. Lots of good comments there, too, by the way.
I'm going to address the date as Eric, his name is Salaji. And what he said was that is a date that is a doable date, providing that all parties work in good faith with due diligence. He did not say we could do that in a vacuum, and I repeated it several times this morning. We believe it's a doable date if you, all 5 of you, or a majority of you, like Mr. Hill said, get on the bus and help us move forward. And FMPA works in good faith and with due diligence, then it's a real date. Okay, so since those are unknowns, it's clearly unknown from comments this morning whether you're going to be on that movement, and it's clearly unknown what FMPA is going to do. In order for us to commit to a date, it's like if we're not done here, if we don't get it done by this date, we're done. That is truly, as Mr. Hill said, that would kill the sale. We cannot control third parties and what they're going to do and when they're going to make those approvals. So it's a goal, and it's a goal only if. So please do not state unequivocally that that's our date. It's our goal, and it's a date that we believe is doable if all 3 parties are working together, and I want that to be clear.
2 comments. One comment is that you said that if we don't go forward on the surcharge, the $52 million, but which, by the way, you'd offered $30 million before for the 3 years power, but if we don't do that, we're just going to go forward with option A, in other words, the Internal Revenue Service letter. So, I mean, it's not like that's what you said. The second thing is, I said and I meant, any referendum has to have a date. A contract has to have a date. So, we can't ask people to vote on an open end again. I just can't do it. I won't do it.
You're asking us to set a date here. The contract would have a date, just like the existing contract has a date now. And then if you choose to have a referendum, we'll make sure that the electorate has the information they need. And I will just address, since you mentioned that we had originally offered $30 million, I would just like to address that, because in the original purchase and sale agreement, which exists now, we agreed to purchase power from OUC over 3 years at a cost of approximately $30 million. Under those terms, we were receiving power that our customers could use and benefit from at that cost. But under this FMPA proposal, that the $52 million payment that they're requesting, this increases the purchase price of the transaction without FPL receiving any power or other asset that would benefit FPL customers. Those those costs are very difficult. We cannot justify them to our customers, our shareholders, or our regulators. That's why we believe that sharing the $52 million was the best solution. And that's stepping up separately from the $30 million, as I've explained to you a few times, and explaining publicly now and here to the council, that there is a difference, and that we want to share the burden, but we think it's fair to split it down the middle, and we get no asset or benefit from paying that $26 million, unlike the power that we would have gained from the estimate value of $30 million.
Further public comment, Ms. Gardner, please.
Good morning, Council. My name is B. Gardner. I live at Walker's Glen in Vero Beach. But that's not the city of Vero Beach. Pardon me, it's the county. First of all, I came up here to personally thank the mayor for that fabulous speech that you gave. And I would like to ask the council or ask Tammy Vach what it is I need to do to get a copy of that. Do you need my email address?
I have it. I'll send it to you.
Thank you. I would like one. I think that's very important that we read over and discuss amongst ourselves what it is the mayor had to say. And I believe that if you really listen to again or read it again, you will find out that almost every question that I have had regarding this sale was answered by Mayor Winger. So I want to thank you again, Mayor Winger. I appreciate it. I listened to every word you said. So now that I know I'm going to get a copy of it, the thing that stood out the most, in my opinion, was that this council was never, ever charged with making a sale to FPL. They were asked many times over to consider getting us rates comparable to FPL. And at the time that this all started many years ago, and I do recall this very, very clearly in my mind, that Vero Beach at one time, at the time that this all started, we were the 5th lowest in the state as far as rates go. The 5th lowest in the state. And during this process of trying to make a sale happen with FP&L, believe it or not, our rates have been raised 5 times. Now, they're being asked to be raised yet again to pay a portion of the possibility of getting FPL rates. It's beginning to look like it's not going to happen, in my opinion. Now, the reason I'm here today, believe it or not, is not necessarily to get up here and thank Richard Winger for that wonderful speech and to talk about this. I'm here because I looked up the agenda last night before the meeting today, and here it is. I pulled it up online, and nowhere on the agenda did I see an item on the agenda that said that this council was going to vote to agree to a surcharge. It wasn't on your agenda. However, before I came to the meeting this morning, which I wasn't planning on doing, I was planning on staying home and watching it like I always do so I can throw socks at the TV. The only reason I came here today was because what I read in the paper. Front page news. Lower for 4 years or higher for 3. Vero Beach councils to set surcharge rate for electric sale to FP&L. That's what I read in the paper. It said that that's what was going to happen today. I took a shower, blow-dried my hair, and I came down here because I really thought that you were going to do what the paper told you were going to do. But I'm glad that you didn't. I'm glad for your speech, and I think we all ought to sit back, take a deep breath, and continue with this council to continue to get us lower rates. Thank you.
Mr. Mucher, please come forward.
Mark Mucher, 617 Indian Lilac Road again. I made a few quick notes during the mayor's speech, and I wanted to clarify those. I want to say that I'm not even going to get into the utility authority. I don't believe that that is, any kind of a magic wand that you just turn everything over to the utility authority and the city gets rich and the rates go down. I don't understand that at all. But Mr. Mayor, you did say that FP&L and OUC's position in this sale get better every day, and I don't understand that at all. You clearly didn't understand the deal when you talked about the $30 million because, as Amy just said, the $30 million included a lot of electricity, and the $52 million doesn't include any electricity. So FP&L is pretty clearly kicking in another between 20 and $26 million. So how that gets better every day, I don't know. I don't know how OUC's position has changed or changes daily.
I'll answer your
Maybe
questions
you can
if you
explain
like.
that. Yes, please.
Well, as far as OUC is concerned, we have a 20-year contract which was signed in 2008 and commenced January 1st, 2010. Under that 20-year contract, when 20 years is up, it's up. There's also a clause where it can be reopened. What happens is we've offered to pay OUC $54 million, of which the first $20 million is to exit that contract for stranded costs. We could have a long conversation about that. But that every year that goes by, 1/20th, presumably, of the $20 million, forget the 34, that's for power after the 3 years, is being defeased, okay? During this period of time, and I'm only going to give you two examples, and I've listened to the Finance Commission, and I can tell you Mr. Gorey's got about 6 or 7 of them, but I'll give you one in Florida Power and Light. As the thing has gone on, this last year we invested, I believe it was $4.2 million in rejuvenating Unit 5 and 2, which is really kind of silly because we never run the darn things. And we invested cash capital in those units. And we've been investing in the system out of cash all that time and improving the system. So the system today is better than it was a year ago when we signed the contract. I give you, Mark, only 2 brief examples. There is a list of 5 or 6. Mr. Gorey would be glad to provide them for you. But the answer to the question is, it is an accurate statement. I'm sorry.
We did put $4 million into the power plant, but I don't believe that Florida Power and Light is ever going to run that power plant. So I don't see how you can say that that inures to their benefit.
Well, we can debate, but there's a long list of improvements we've made. You can debate them, but I can tell you crystal clear, the system is getting better and OUC is getting a better deal. I mean, you know, and I'm not blaming OUC or Florida Power and Light. I'm just saying as time goes by, the terms that we agreed to a year ago, we would have probably, and Mr. Kramer and I didn't agree to them for some of these reasons, but the point is that in a year's time, lots changes, and that needs to be rethought about. And I have great faith in the commissions, and that's our system of government here, and I'm going to continue to have that faith.
Well, okay, well, I'll let that go, but the next thing I wanted to talk about was the referendum. You talk about a referendum like it's a done deal, like it's required. I don't know that that's the case. You'll vote on that referendum. I don't know whether it's going to be 5-0 or 3-2 or 2-3 or 4-1 or what it's going to be, but the referendum is not required. If y'all want to kick this decision down the road to the Utility and Finance Commission and then to a referendum and just delay the decision further and further and make that January 1st, 2015 date more difficult to attain, y'all go ahead. But the referendum is not a given.
Let me answer that one. First of all, what I said, and if you read my notes, was that once a contract exists, this presumes that we have a change in contract, and Florida Power and Light doesn't continue to have the current contract, which doesn't end at December 31st, 2016. They can certainly do that. That contract is valid to then. They can continue to negotiate through that period of time. But if they're asking for a major change in the contract, the city attorney has advised me that such major change would not meet the wording of the last referendum. I believe that's correct, and we would require another referendum. And what I've said is we should not have referendums without the voters having a firm contract to vote on. That's what I've said. And I believe that to be so. We should not ask voters to vote on a concept.
Well,
Look where it's got us now.
Well, look at where all these referendums have got us now. And the last referendum wasn't required.
I voted against it, by the way.
I think it's arguable that the last referendum requires a new referendum. But do
you agree with me, Mr.
If that's
Comment?
what Wayne says, Wayne, are you saying that that a referendum is 100% required if there are significant changes in the contract?
Yes, and I think Mr. Igo and Pat would probably agree. I don't want to speak for them, but
I'd like to hear their opinions on that. But
one of the reasons I didn't want that
I read it very
referendum at the
carefully,
time,
and I didn't see it. I'm not an attorney. I may be accused of playing one on TV. I don't know. All right. Well, my point is a referendum has the effect of possibly delaying the closing date.
No, sir.
Well, people might be making decisions, particularly people like the Public Service Commission and FERC, outside agencies like that. They may want to see whether this referendum passes or not. I don't know.
Mr. Mucci, what I'm suggesting is that before there is a referendum, there be a contract, and the contract have a date within it. What would happen is if any contract that you had, new contract or revised contract, call it as you might, what would happen in there, you would have a provision that both parties can mutually extend for 30 days or 60 days, whatever it is, to allow such approval or further action than is necessary. So it has, what you say is not what it is.
All right. Well, I've said what I meant to say about a referendum and the need for one, and I hope you all remember how painful the last one was and what the results of the last one were. It's my opinion that people like Toby Hill and a whole lot of the other residents here would vote yes on a blank check, and so I just don't think there are going to be any surprises. You talked about debt. You also talked about shooting for a January 1st, 2015 date. Let's say it takes 3 months to put together this whatever refinancing you're talking about. It might be longer than that. And then you're going to turn around and pay it off in six months after that. Just doesn't make any sense. If you don't want this deal, if we're going to stay in the utility business for the rest of our lives, then maybe it makes some sense. And you talked about shutting down the power plant. If we move forward, we go ahead, we close January 15th, January 2015, or sometime close to that. Florida Power and Light will take those employees and those demolition costs and things like that. And they'll take those costs off our backs. If we close the power plant ourselves, you're putting a minimum of 50 people on the street. You're paying their pensions. You're paying their separation costs in terms of you'll probably give them bonuses in terms of sick pay, accumulated sick pay and vacation time, and you'll pay the full cost of their unemployment, which could be considerable because we're self-insured. We don't have unemployment insurance. So that's going to be literally millions and millions of dollars. Just the personnel cost of shutting down the power plant.
I'd invite you to take your comments to the commission. I'm sure they'd be happy to hear them.
Don't worry.
Thank you for your comments. Rock?
Good afternoon. J. Rock Tonkel, and I reside in Grand Harbor and am pleasantly surprised to be appointed to the Utilities Commission, but looking forward to the assignment. You've said a lot today, Mr. Mayor, much of which remains to be digested and thought through. I had a very distinct impression, first of all, that the goal remains, as it has always been, to bring relief to all the ratepayers. The other thing that I'm struck by is the subordinate position this city is in. I know we can go back, and I think we probably should, through any kind of fair analysis, be very critical of the prior councils in terms of what they committed this city to and its ratepayers. But rather than concentrating on that, the impression I have is that because we're in a subordinate and weakened position, the only party that will help us get the relief happens to be Florida Power and Light. In my opinion, and there has been this suggestion that there are other buyers out there, there are other parties who are interested. We can run our own utility. We can exclude the ratepayers in the county and provide electricity to them. I think they'll prove to be false and undoable, unachievable. I don't want to see us leave the partnership that we have with Florida Power and Light. Like Toby Hill, I know of no interest I have in their stock or their position. They've never offered me a thing. But they have offered this council, I think, extraordinary steps, including the interest-free loan and the relief that's provided in order to deal effectively with the unreasonable demands of the Florida Municipal Power Association. Let's be realistic. I hope that you will reconsider setting a firm date and allow this to run and conclude in a partnership and a long-term partnership for rate relief with Florida Power and Light. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Mrs. Ginn. Or Ms. Ginn.
Caroline Ginn, 5151 North A1A, Vero Beach, Florida, 32963. I thought I had appeared for the last time before this council and would never do this again. But I have determined that there are some things that I want to bring forward. First, I want to thank you, Mayor, for your carefully thought out remarks. And I am in agreement with you. We need to steer our own boat. This is not a good deal for the city of Vero Beach. We are only getting $3 million. That'll be what we realize from the sale of our power plant, which FERC puts at their evaluation at $293 million, and our GAI appraisal at $186 or $189 million. There are a lot of contingencies coming out of the cash money that are supposedly going into our coffers. They're not. They're going into a pension fund, a decommissioning fund, all of these things, and that goes back to the contract and terms of agreement. I want to do a little history lesson here. I thought that we would be getting out of FMPA, out of the whole thing, back in the year 2010. I thought we went through 5 years of rate hell to get out of it. And then I found out the other day, talking with the city manager, that all we got out of was the organization. We didn't get out of the all requirements projects. He very, very doitly decided that we needed to put our name on the next 5 years. So now we will get out of the all requirements project in the year 2016. And all I can say is thank you, Mr. O'Connor. I think, Mr. Councilman Turner, you have done a very good job of reporting on the actions of FMPA. The fact that their debt is now $2.3, listen to this term, $billion. The last time I looked at them online and on their report, with their reports, it was slightly under $1 billion. They have an enormous amount of debt, and they keep refinancing all the projects. That's kicking the can down the road. It's never, ever going to change. I cannot tell you how upsetting this is. And anyway, I am not pleased that Mr. Salagi and Mr. Guerrero, I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly, but the CEOs of FMPA and FP&L met without any city representation. And they came up with this deal between the two of them. And they kind of left somebody out, and that is the person who pays the bill. And it's true. They're going to put in $26 million of their funds, but we are going to have to put that surcharge on, the 6% surcharge. And what happens if we don't make that $26 million at the end of 3 years? How long is it going to go on? I want you to appreciate that this now has to have the approval of third parties, the bond councils, the bond trustees, the rating agencies. This is not going to be an easy thing to accomplish. And then, two, any member, any one of the 20 members of FMPA can say nothing doing. You're not getting out. Does anyone want to take a bet on Kissimmee? They're in deals with FMPA, Cane Island. They built mutual generation units together. They're not going to let us out, folks. I just don't believe it. Anyway, another thing that concerns me greatly are the contingency obligations. We can't get out of those. Our names are on those bonds, folks, up in New York or wherever they're held. And not only that, what about our St. Lucie power plant? We have an obligation there. I don't know if we just own what's generated. Are there any capital obligations? I really have never looked at that document. But that is serious, terribly serious. It was the front page of the Press Journal this week. I'm sure you all looked at it. 3,700 tubes are wearing. And so I decided, they said it wasn't comparable. The number was comparable to San Onofre out in California. But the wear is not the same. You need to go online and look at San Onofre. They will be having an auction of their hardware this month, the 26th, 27th, and 28th. That plant has been closed down. It was leaking radiation. It sits on the Pacific Ocean. It has a seawall. 5 miles away from it is a fault. It is waiting for a tsunami to come over it, and there will be millions of people. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but we have a contingent liability, and it goes beyond just what we're doing here. I don't know how somebody can explain to me how we get out of them. Are they defeased over time? I think I heard that from Mr. Winger. But I really do think we need to back out of the whole thing. I think we need to back out of our contract, our so-called contract, if we can get out of it. I think we need to get on our own path with our own utility. And then we will have the money should contingency situations come up. What would we do if we had a bill for $20 million on the back of the citizens of Vero Beach? We would have to declare bankruptcy. This is very serious, very serious. I want you to think about it. And I want you to know that I do consider everything very seriously that I say. I even pray on the matter. So, Mayor, I want to again thank you so much for your thoughtful comments, and I know that you will try to do what you think is best. But please remember, we cannot duck our obligations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gibb. Mr. Wilson, please.
Charlie Wilson, P.O. Box 651114 in Vero Beach. I am a Vero Beach city resident. The time has come, the walrus said, to speak of other things. We have come to the conclusion of a long trip where the decision will be made, and rest assured, it will be made here today. As we discuss the details of this deal, the details can be discussed as we go forward. But one thing cannot be discussed in the future, and that is the will of this city. We either have the will to go forward or we do not. We are faced with that decision. Door number one, door number two, fish or cut bait is where we are today. In 2009, I was elected, and one of the things that I said was, if we can't be competitive in the electric business, we need to be out of the electric business. We are no more competitive today than we were then. We were no more competitive today than we were 35 years ago. Any one of you who believes that by operating our plant that we can achieve substantial savings is faced with 35 years of history and something called math. When you don't control the fuel prices, you cannot control what people pay. One of the questions that came up in the last election, and here's proof positive, elections have consequences. We were all told during the last election, don't worry, it's a done deal. Nothing we can do to stop this from happening. Don't worry, right? I said at the time, and I gave lists of the ways that you could stop a deal from happening, and one of them is the poison pill that you see today, and that is a drop-dead date. What you could call that is an FMPA stall until date. Best if stalled until January 31st. Okay? It is a poison pill. And for those of you who are trying to tell all these people in this audience and all those people watching on television that you are working towards a sale while you are putting this poison pill in this deal is not being genuine with the public. We are not customers of FMPA. We are hostages of FMPA. It is getting worse every day. It is getting worse every year. The cost of freedom is high. And we now know how much the cost of freedom is because they shot a number and FPL called their bluff. Using Mr. Winger's example of the two trains, well, it's sort of close because FPL is on the track that we set them on. We asked them to come here. We asked them to help us get out of bondage. And they have worked for 5 years to do that. And I know that because I'm the one that invited them. While they're on the track trying to bring relief to our ratepayers, FMPA is blowing up the bridges to stop this sale. And the question is going to be, are three of you going to help them? Because rest assured, we know from 2009, Bill Fish, nice guy, got up here today and said, I was on the council when they passed this. And gosh, we made a mistake. Well, gosh, we tried to stop them. You know? And what we have now, at that time, is we had the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the electrical apocalypse, the end of the world. Jim Gabbard, Charlie Vatunik. If you want to know why you're paying $20 million, call Charlie Vatunik. He's in the phone book. Okay? Tom White and Say Babel. They're the ones that got us into this bad deal over strenuous objections. The question today is going to be, will you forever be known as Miss Graves, Mr. Winger, and Mr. Kramer, who kept us in bondage when we had the chance to get out? it will rest squarely on your shoulders. We asked Mr. Winger ran his office, and he had a sign on his back, and it says, "Get a fair price." You know what? FP&L paid a fair price. I don't see a sign on any of your backs that say, FMPA, give us a fair price to get out of here. You know, because FP&L is doing what they were asked. It is not FP&L that causes those rates. If you'll look at them, you have the gross receipts tax, you have a 10% tax, you have every single possible, everybody has their finger in this pie, except for FP&L. The fact is, in the final analysis, gentlemen, I'm not going to talk, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to talk about the specifics of the amounts. I don't like $26 million. If you don't like the $26 million, thank the commission, thank the council that was here before you, because they stuck you with this $26 million. Not FP&L, the council stuck you with $26 million. This is eventually going to go to the voters anyway. So what difference does it make? If you don't like the deal, Ms. Graves or Mr. Winger or Mr. Kramer, if you don't like the deal, fine. Make your case to the public. Because the public's going to decide anyway. So the direction that I would just dearly love to see is for this council to turn to FP&L and say, we would like you to continue to pursue the way out of this problem. Meanwhile, we're going to try our best to lower rates, and when you come up with the final plan, we will put it on a referendum and we'll see if the people like it. Okay? It's incumbent upon them to bring a deal that is fair and accurate and helpful to the people. And then they get to decide, that's a bitter pill, but you know what? It's better than slavery. Yeah. So the fact is the only decision you have to make is not to send it to the commissions, although you're going to, because that's the way politics works. It keeps you out of the line of fire and satisfies all your special interests that helped you get elected. So, but what's going to eventually happen is you're going to turn it over to the public, right? So what difference does it make? Whatever contract they come back with that goes on the referendum is the one people are going to vote on. It doesn't matter whether you like it or you don't like it. It matters whether the people like it or don't like it. And one small item. There is one other way. You believe that you have the only path forward. You don't. It's called a referendum. There's another kind of referendum, and that is a voter-initiated petition referendum that binds you to the decision of this public, and that is still there. So, what I urge you to do, ladies and gentlemen, is go forward. There's no reason to dilly-dally. I don't care if y'all stand up and say, I hate the sale, I'm not going to do it, I'm a naysayer. You can listen to the low-information bloggers and go forward. But the real answer is you're going to go to the public. So why don't you just go ahead and do it? What's the delay? If you want to make a January 31st deadline, say, go do your contract. As soon as you get it back, bring it to us. We'll put it on a referendum, and the people will decide. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Herron, please. We'll run to 12:45, and if we still have public comment, we will adjourn for lunch at that time. We will not discuss the matter until after lunch.
Thank you, Council. And Glenn Herron, I live at 1964 Gray Falcon Circle, Southwest in Indian River County. I'd like to follow up on a couple of the comments that were made by the previous speakers. I would suggest that in this deal there are really three options. There are three doors in which we could take. Door number one, we could sell to FP&L, and something that has not been mentioned much today, we can sell to FP&L and start saving over $20 million this community is currently losing because we are part of Vero Beach Electric. $20 million each and every year. We could start doing that if we walk through door number one. But of course, we have to pay this FMPA exit fee of $26 million. And as we can see on the slide up there, that would bring our rates down from 129.43 to, I believe it's 109 under the 3-year option. That's a great deal. Let's move forward with that. I would certainly recommend that. Put it in a simpler way, we're losing over $20 million by not having FP&L rates. That's the equivalent of 1 year's worth of savings. If you wanted to do it all in 1 year, pay it off and be done. Then you're back on FP&L rates, and we're saving $20 million a year. Door number 2. There is door number 2, and that would be, as been mentioned here today, the FMPA is clearly a problem child, something that this community helped form over 30 years ago. Decisions made by previous councils created and maintained the FMPA. We could try to get our assets back. We could try to get our cash and our investments and our generation. We could ask them to sell it. We could fight a war with the FMPA and try to get that money back that we've been paying off for over 30 years. It would require significant effort. We could go around to the other member cities and educate them about their inefficient utilities. We could educate them about the nature of the FMPA investments. But I think you're going to find one answer. The FMPA is buried in debt and the assets are underwater. But this would take years to do, possibly 5 years. And each year that we try to do this, in addition to the cost of prosecuting that war, would be losing $20 million each and every year because we don't have FP&L rates. So over a 5-year period, we lose well over $100 million. That would be door number 2. Door number 3, keep the system. Keep Vero Beach Electric and stay prisoner to the FMPA. Keep losing over $20 million a year, and like the other 20 FMPA entitlement cities, we'll just be like them. None of them can compete with FP&L. This is a failed experiment. So we can stay with our fellow FMPA entitlement members, and because they don't have FP&L rates either, collectively lose $200 million per year merely to transfer $53 million to their collective general funds. That, in a nutshell, is the FMPA. Of course, I would recommend door number 1. Sell to FP&L, pay the FMPA exit penalty, and get out of this inefficient government-run utility and a bureaucracy known as the FMPA once and for all. So let's move forward. Let's ask FP&L to finish the deal with FMPA. Ms. Graves, I couldn't agree with you more. Let's send this to a referendum. Ask FP&L to finish the deal, and let's take it to a referendum. Please, let's move forward. Thank you.
I have one more speaker before lunch. Are there other speakers, or can we close the public hearing? All right, so what we'll do is we'll have one more speaker, this one, and then I think we're past lunchtime. We'll adjourn for lunch. We'll open public comment when we come back. If that's acceptable to council.
Certainly.
Mr. Kramer?
Sure.
Mrs. Turner? Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Council. I'm Honey Manous. I live at 27 Starfish Drive here in this city. And just on the record, my comments are mine alone. I don't represent any other group. And I'm here, again, just because I love my city. Council, I believe it's important to understand that we're exactly where we were when this potential sale first came into the public eye. I think that was back in 2009, maybe 5 years ago. We knew then what we know now, that we have a commitment to the All Requirements Project, where we contractually agreed to work with other municipalities for our mutual power supply. And to be relieved of that commitment, every municipality which is a part of it must vote to allow us to exit. I think there's 15 other cities involved. I'm not exactly sure of that number. 15. Okay, each one individually must vote to allow us to exit. There has to be a unanimous agreement. And didn't we recently learn that one of those cities, Kissimmee, is not going to let us out? There can't be any surprises here because we know the strength of this mutual cooperative lies in their mutual cooperation. If they let one member out, their strength is going to weaken, and there's no benefit to them for that. So without the unanimous agreement to enable our exit, we're going to remain obligated. We knew that 5 years ago, and it's still true today. We are not going to get that unanimous vote to allow us to exit at this time, okay? So the question begs, even with that knowledge, what have we done in these years since 2009? Well, for one thing, we've spent a lot of money. The first thing we did, and I think Mrs. Ginn mentioned it, we contracted with a firm to do an appraisal of our system. That was not inexpensive. Then we hired transactional attorneys, and we've spent about $1.5 million now. We've tacked that onto our electric bills. We had to get bond counsel involved, and that was over $100,000. And then we departed from established business practice of issuing bonds to cover maintenance of the system, and we used cash instead, and we tacked that onto electric bills. We've had the cost of referendums, we've had travel expenses, on and on and on. And I just have to ask, where are we? We're exactly where we were when this whole thing started, literally. We are contractually obligated to all the member cities who are a part of the All Requirements Project. Nothing has changed except we've spent a lot of money and our electric bills are higher for it. And I do believe that it's time to acknowledge that if this sale is to go forward, it is a conflict between FPL and FMPA with the All Requirements Project. And I don't feel that we should be subsidizing this effort. There's nothing further that we can do at this point. Any talk of holding another referendum right now is not going to achieve anything. It's not going to get us out of the All Requirements Project, and we will just have spent more money to achieve nothing. When we can exit the All Requirements Project, then we have something substantial to talk about and to vote on. But until that time, we have a city here that needs our attention. We're entering the challenges of the budget season. We need to lower electric bills for our customers, and we need to assure our city services. And above all, we need to focus on the stability of a city that we love. We're here. This is our city. It's time to put Vero Beach first and foremost in policy. That sale is going to happen in due time, but we can't change what we can't change. It's that simple. We can't keep throwing money into it. It's time now to focus on our city. I really want to thank all of you for the very hard work that you have put into this to bring us to this point in time, and I'd like to extend that appreciation to Mrs. Brunges, who has been very faithful here. So thank you for this opportunity to give you my comments. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I may? Ms. Minnie, just to offer clarification, I'm not sure you're aware of that All Requirements isn't the only project. We're not taking power from there, but we are still committed to St. Lucie, to Stanton, and to Stanton 2. Those contracts are still in effect. So you said, why wait till All Requirement? It's really irrelevant because we have these long-term commitments on these other issues.
Surely, and I understand. I was just bringing the one object forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we stand adjourned to 1:30, please.